a WikiVidi documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. Mahatma Gandhi. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was an Indian activist who was the leader of the Indian independence movement against British rule. Employing non-violent civil disobedience, Gandhi led India to independence and inspired movements for civil rights and freedom across the world. The honorific Mahatma applied to him first in 1914 in South Africa is now used worldwide. In India, he is also called Bapu and Gandhiji, and known as the father of the nation. Born and raised in a Hindu merchant caste family in coastal Gujarat, India, and trained in law at the Inner Temple, London, Gandhi first employed non-violent civil disobedience as an expatriate lawyer in South Africa, in the resident Indian community's struggle for civil rights. After his return to India in 1915, he set about organizing peasants, farmers, and urban laborers to protest against excessive land tax and discrimination. Assuming leadership of the Indian National Congress in 1921, Gandhi led nationwide campaigns for various social causes and for achieving Swaraj or self-rule. Gandhi led Indians in challenging the British-imposed salt tax with the 400 km Dandi Salt March in 1930, and later in calling for the British to quit India in 1942. He was imprisoned for many years, upon many occasions, in both South Africa and India. He lived modestly in a self-sufficient residential community and wore the traditional Indian dhoti and shawl, woven with yarn hand-spun on a charkha. He ate simple vegetarian food, and also undertook long fasts as a means of both self-purification and political protest. Gandhi's vision of an independent India based on religious pluralism, however, was challenged in the early 1940s by a new Muslim nationalism which was demanding a separate Muslim homeland carved out of India. Eventually, in August 1947, Britain granted independence, but the British Indian Empire was partitioned into two dominions, a Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. As many displaced Hindus, Muslims, and Sikhs made their way to their new lands, religious violence broke out, especially in the Punjab and Bengal. Eschewing the official celebration of independence in Delhi, Gandhi visited the affected areas, attempting to provide solace. In the months following, he undertook several fasts unto death to stop religious violence. The last of these, undertaken on the 12th of January 1948 when he was 78, also had the indirect goal of pressuring India to pay out some cash assets owed to Pakistan. Some Indians thought Gandhi was too accommodating. Among them was Nathuram Godse, a Hindu extremist who assassinated Gandhi on the 30th of January 1948 by firing 3 bullets into his chest. Captured along with many of his co-conspirators and collaborators, Godse and his co-conspirator Narayan Apte were tried, convicted and executed, while many of their other accomplices were given prison sentences. Gandhi's birthday, the 2nd of October, is commemorated in India as Gandhi Jayanti, a national holiday, and worldwide as the International Day of Non-Violence. Early life and background. Mohandas Karamchand Gandhi was born on the 2nd of October 1869 into a Gujarati Hindu Modbamiya family in Porbandar, a coastal town on the Kathiawar Peninsula, and then part of the small princely state of Porbandar in the Kathiawar Agency of the Indian Empire. His father, Karamchand Gandhi, served as the Diwan of Porbandar state. Although he only had an elementary education and had previously been a clerk in the state administration, Karamchand proved a capable chief minister. During his tenure, Karamchand married 4 times. His first 2 wives died young, after each had given birth to a daughter, and his third marriage was childless. In 1857, Karamchand sought his third wife's permission to remarry. That year, he married Putlabai, who also came from Junagadh, and was from a Pranami Vaishnava family. Karamchand and Putlabai had 3 children over the ensuing decade: a son, Laxmidas, a daughter, Railatbane, and another son, Karsanders. On the 2nd of October 1869, Putlabai gave birth to her last child, Mohandas, in a dark, windowless ground floor room of the Gandhi family residence in Porbandar city. As a child, Gandhi was described by his sister Railat as restless as Mercury, either playing or roaming about. One of his favorite pastimes was twisting dogs' ears. The Indian classics, especially the stories of Shravana and King Harishchandra, had a great impact on Gandhi in his childhood. In his autobiography, he admits that they left an indelible impression on his mind. He writes, "It haunted me, and I must have acted Harishchandra to myself times without number." Gandhi's early self-identification with truth and love as supreme values is traceable to these epic characters. The family's religious background was eclectic. Gandhi's father Karamchand was Hindu and his mother Putlabai was from a Pranami Vaishnava Hindu family. Gandhi's father was of Madhbamya caste in the Varna of Vaishya. His mother came from the medieval Krishna Bhakti-based Pranami tradition, whose religious texts include the Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavata Purana, and a collection of 14 texts with teachings that the tradition believes to include the essence of the Vedas, the Quran and the Bible. Gandhi was deeply influenced by his mother, an extremely pious lady who would not think of taking her meals without her daily prayers. She would take the hardest vows and keep them without flinching. To keep 2 or 3 consecutive fasts was nothing to her. In 1874, Gandhi's father Karamchand left Porbandar for the smaller state of Rajkot, where he became a councillor to its ruler, the Thakur Sahib, though Rajkot was a less prestigious state than Porbandar. The British Regional Political Agency was located there, which gave the state's Diwan a measure of security. In 1876, Karamchand became Diwan of Rajkot and was succeeded as Diwan of Porbandar by his brother Tulsidas. His family then rejoined him in Rajkot. At age 9, Gandhi entered the local school in Rajkot, near his home. There he studied the rudiments of arithmetic, history, the Gujarati language and geography. At age 11, he joined the high school in Rajkot. He was an average student, won some prizes, but was a shy and tongue-tied student, with no interest in games. His only companions were books and school lessons. While at high school, Gandhi's elder brother introduced him to a Muslim friend named Sheikh Mehtab. Mehtab was older in age, taller and encouraged the strictly vegetarian boy to eat meat to gain height. He also took Mohandas to a brothel one day. Though Mohandas was struck blind and dumb in this den of vice, rebuffed the prostitute's advances and was promptly sent out of the brothel. The experience caused Mohandas mental anguish, and he abandoned the company of Mehtab. In May 1883, the 13-year-old Mohandas was married to 14-year-old Kastabai Makanji Kapadia in an arranged marriage, according to the custom of the region at that time. In the process, he lost a year at school, but was later allowed to make up by accelerating his studies. His wedding was a joint event, where his brother and cousin were also married. Recalling the day of their marriage, he once said, "As we didn't know much about marriage, for us it meant only wearing new clothes, eating sweets and playing with relatives." However, as was prevailing tradition, the adolescent bride was to spend much time at her parents' house, and away from her husband. Writing many years later, Mohandas described with regret the lustful feelings he felt for his young bride. "Even at school I used to think of her, and the thought of nightfall and our subsequent meeting was ever haunting me." He later recalled feeling jealous and possessive of her, such as when she would visit a temple with her girlfriends, and being sexually lustful in his feelings for her. In late 1885, Gandhi's father Karamchand died. Gandhi, then 16 years old, and his wife of age 17 had their first baby, who survived only a few days. The 2 deaths anguished Gandhi. The Gandhi couple had 4 more children, all sons: Harilal, born in 1888, Manilal, born in 1892, Ramdas, born in 1897, and Devdas, born in 1900. In November 1887, the 18-year-old Gandhi graduated from high school in Ahmedabad. In January 1888, he enrolled at Samaldas College in Bhavnagar state, then the sole degree-granting institution of higher education in the region. But he dropped out and returned to his family in Porbandar. English barrister. Gandhi came from a poor family, and he had dropped out of the cheapest college he could afford. Mavji Dev Joshiji, a Brahmin priest and family friend, advised Gandhi and his family that he should consider law studies in London. In July 1888, his wife Kasturba gave birth to their first surviving son, Harilal. His mother was not comfortable about Gandhi leaving his wife and family and going so far from home. Gandhi's uncle Tulsidas also tried to dissuade his nephew. Gandhi wanted to go. To persuade his wife and mother, Gandhi made a vow in front of his mother that he would abstain from meat, alcohol, and women. Gandhi's brother Laxmidas, who was already a lawyer, cheered Gandhi's London studies plan and offered to support him. Putlabai gave Gandhi her permission and blessing. On the 10th of August 1888, Gandhi, aged 18, left Porbandar for Mumbai, then known as Bombay. Upon arrival, he stayed with the local Modbanya community while waiting for the ship travel arrangements. The head of the community knew Gandhi's father. After learning Gandhi's plans, he and other elders warned Gandhi that England would tempt him to compromise his religion and eat and drink in Western ways. Gandhi informed them of his promise to his mother and her blessings. The local chief disregarded it and excommunicated him an outcast. But Gandhi ignored this, and on the 4th of September, he sailed from Bombay to London. His brother saw him off. In London, Gandhi studied law and jurisprudence and enrolled at the Inner Temple with the intention of becoming a barrister. His childhood shyness and self-withdrawal had continued through his teens, and he remained so when he arrived in London. But he joined a public speaking practice group and overcame this handicap to practice law. His time in London was influenced by the vow he had made to his mother. He tried to adopt English customs, including taking dancing lessons. However, he could not appreciate the bland vegetarian food offered by his landlady and was frequently hungry until he found one of London's few vegetarian restaurants. Influenced by Henry Salt's writing, he joined the Vegetarian Society, was elected to its executive committee, and started a local Bayswater chapter. Some of the vegetarians he met were members of the Theosophical Society, which had been founded in 1875 to further universal brotherhood, and which was devoted to the study of Buddhist and Hindu literature. They encouraged Gandhi to join them in reading the Bhagavad Gita both in translation as well as in the original. Gandhi, at age 22, was called to the bar in June 1891 and then left London for India, where he learned that his mother had died while he was in London and that his family had kept the news from him. His attempts at establishing a law practice in Bombay failed because he was psychologically unable to cross-examine witnesses. He returned to Rajkot to make a modest living drafting petitions for litigants, but he was forced to stop when he ran afoul of a British officer. In 1893, a Muslim merchant in Kathiawar named Dada Abdullah contacted Gandhi. Abdullah owned a large successful shipping business in South Africa. His distant cousin in Johannesburg needed a lawyer, and they preferred someone with Kathiawari heritage. Gandhi inquired about his pay for the work. They offered a total salary of £105 plus travel expenses. He accepted it, knowing that it would be at least 1 year commitment in the colony of Natal, South Africa, also a part of the British Empire. Civil rights activist in South Africa, 1893-1914. In April 1893, Gandhi, aged 23, set sail for South Africa to be the lawyer for Abdullah's cousin. He spent 21 years in South Africa, where he developed his political views, ethics and politics. Immediately upon arriving in South Africa, Gandhi faced discrimination because of his skin color and heritage. Like all people of color, he was not allowed to sit with European passengers in the stagecoach and told to sit on the floor near the driver, then beaten when he refused. Elsewhere, he was kicked into a gutter for daring to walk near a house. In another instance, thrown off a train at Pietermaritzburg after refusing to leave the first class. He sat in a train station, shivering all night and pondering if he should return to India or protest for his rights. He chose to protest and was allowed to board the train the next day. In another incident, the magistrate of a Durban court ordered Gandhi to remove his turban, which he refused to do. Indians were not allowed to walk on public footpaths in South Africa. Gandhi was kicked by a police officer out of the footpath onto the street without warning. When Gandhi arrived in South Africa, according to Herman, he thought of himself as a Briton first and an Indian second. However, the prejudice against him and his fellow Indians from British people that Gandhi experienced and observed deeply bothered him. He found it humiliating, struggling to understand how some people can feel honor or superiority or pleasure in such inhumane practices. Gandhi began to question his people's standing in the British Empire. The Abdullah case that had brought him to South Africa concluded in May 1894, and the Indian community organized a farewell party for Gandhi as he prepared to return to India. However, a new natal government discriminatory proposal led to Gandhi extending his original period of stay in South Africa. He planned to assist Indians in opposing a bill to deny them the right to vote, a right then proposed to be an exclusive European right. He asked Joseph Chamberlain, the British colonial secretary, to reconsider his position on this bill, though unable to halt the bill's passage. His campaign was successful in drawing attention to the grievances of Indians in South Africa. He helped found the Natal Indian Congress in 1894, and through this organization, he molded the Indian community of South Africa into a unified political force. In January 1897, when Gandhi landed in Durban, a mob of white settlers attacked him, and he escaped only through the efforts of the wife of the police superintendent. However, he refused to press charges against any member of the mob. During the Boer War, Gandhi volunteered in 1900 to form a group of stretcher bearers as the Natal Indian Ambulance Corps. According to Arthur Herman, Gandhi wanted to disprove the imperial British stereotype that Hindus were not fit for manly activities involving danger and exertion, unlike the Muslim, martial races. Gandhi raised 1,100 Indian volunteers to support British combat troops against the Boers. They were trained and medically certified to serve on the front lines. They were auxiliaries at the Battle of Colenso to a white volunteer ambulance corps. Then at Spienkop, Gandhi and his bearers moved to the front line and had to carry wounded soldiers for miles to a field hospital, because the terrain was too rough for the ambulances. Gandhi and 37 other Indians received the Queen's South Africa Medal. In 1906, the Transvaal government promulgated a new act compelling registration of the colony's Indian and Chinese populations. At a mass protest meeting held in Johannesburg on the 11th of September that year, Gandhi adopted his still-evolving methodology of satyagraha, or nonviolent protest, for the first time. According to Anthony Porel, Gandhi was also influenced by the Tamil text Tirukkural, because Leo Tolstoy mentioned it in their correspondence that began with, "A letter to a Hindu." Gandhi urged Indians to defy the new law and to suffer the punishments for doing so. Gandhi's ideas of protests, persuasion skills and public relations had emerged. He took these back to India in 1915. Europeans, Indians, and Africans. Gandhi focused his attention on Indians while in South Africa. He was not interested in politics. This changed after he was discriminated against and bullied, such as by being thrown out of a train coach because of his skin color by a white train official. After several such incidents with whites in South Africa, Gandhi's thinking and focus changed, and he felt he must resist this and fight for rights. He entered politics by forming the Natal Indian Congress. According to Ashwin Desai and Ghulam Ward, Gandhi's views on racism are contentious, and in some cases, distressing to those who admire him. Gandhi suffered persecution from the beginning in South Africa. Like with other colored people, white officials denied him his rights, and the press and those in the streets bullied and called him a parasite. Semi-barbarous, canker, squalid coolie, yellow man, and other epithets. People would spit on him as an expression of racial hate. While in South Africa, Gandhi focused on racial persecution of Indians, but ignored those of Africans. In some cases, state Desai and Ward, his behavior was one of being a willing part of racial stereotyping and African exploitation. During a speech in September 1896, Gandhi complained that the whites in the British colony of South Africa were degrading Indian Hindus and Muslims to a level of kafir. Scholars cite it as an example of evidence that Gandhi at that time thought of Indians and black South Africans differently. As another example given by Herman, Gandhi, at age 24, prepared a legal brief for the Natal Assembly in 1895, seeking voting rights for Indians. Gandhi cited race history and European Orientalists' opinions that Anglo-Saxons and Indians are sprung from the same Aryan stock or rather the Indo-European peoples, and argued that Indians should not be grouped with the Africans. Years later, Gandhi and his colleagues served and helped Africans as nurses and by opposing racism, according to the Nobel Peace Prize winner Nelson Mandela. The general image of Gandhi, state Desai and Ward, has been reinvented since his assassination as if he was always a saint, when in reality his life was more complex, contained inconvenient truths and was one that evolved over time. In contrast, other Africa scholars state the evidence points to a rich history of cooperation and efforts by Gandhi and Indian people with non-white South Africans against persecution of Africans and the apartheid. In 1906, when the British declared war against the Zulu kingdom in Natal, Gandhi at age 36, sympathized with the Zulus, and encouraged the Indian volunteers to help as an ambulance unit. He argued that Indians should participate in the war efforts to change attitudes and perceptions of the British people against the colored people. Gandhi, a group of 20 Indians and black people of South Africa volunteered as a stretcher-bearer corps to treat wounded British soldiers on the opposite side of the war, Zulu victims. White soldiers stopped Gandhi and team from treating the injured Zulu, and some African stretcher-bearers with Gandhi were shot dead by the British. The medical team commanded by Gandhi operated for less than 2 months. Gandhi volunteering to help as a staunch loyalist during the Zulu and other wars made no difference in the British attitude, states Herman. And the African experience was a part of his great disillusionment with the West, transforming him into an uncompromising non-cooperator. In 1910, Gandhi established an idealistic community called Tolstoy Farm near Johannesburg, where he nurtured his policy of peaceful resistance. In the years after black South Africans gained the right to vote in South Africa, Gandhi was proclaimed a national hero with numerous monuments. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?